only lead, a cheap metal and common. And yet it can be argued that this is the most powerful metal in the world today. After it passes through these machines, it wields an immeasurable influence on the minds of men. For here, frozen solidly into type, is a pulse beat from the world of events. It is the living stuff from which the nation's press is made. It is the news. Every day in the United States, 50 million Americans buy the news in a press that blankets the nation with information from the ends of the earth. In no other country is newspaper reading such a constant, widespread, taken for granted habit. Nowhere else are people so addicted to information and entertainment via the printed word. Every day the world comes thumping on the American doorstep, and nothing that happens anywhere remains long a secret from the American newspaper reader. It comes to us pretty casually, the daily paper. But behind its arrival on your doorstep is one of journalism's major stories, how it got there. A great journal goes through a complex chain of operations before it's ready to tell you what it knows. There's the paper it's printed on, for instance. Whole forests must be felled to bring you tomorrow's headlines. And tons of ink must pour into the presses to make those tidings legible. The function of those acres of paper and the oceans of ink is to make you aware of the world you live in, to let you know. A key point in this news gathering is the wire room of the New York Times, where a prodigious harvest of the day's intelligence is reaped. The miracle of modern communications links this room with every nook and cranny of the globe, with every state in the Union. From correspondents everywhere, from the Associated Press, the United Press, and special wires, from Alaska to Cape Town, and from Chicago to Karachi, a torrent of 1 million words gushes daily into this news funnel. Out of the war came a startling communications development. Among them, the Hellschreiber, which we got from the Germans. This is an automatic radio receiving machine that transforms radio code impulses into letters printed on an endless tape, which are then copied off by the operator. But men, not gadgets, make a great newspaper. Experts trained to give clear and honest answers to the always burning question, what's new? Pulitzer Prize winners like W.L. Lawrence, the atom bomb expert, are part of a skilled news-gathering team in which rewrite men link up with reporters on their beats to record the ceaseless flow of events. This might be called the home team of the Times, the men of the local staff whose reports on the swarming life of the metropolis supplement the dispatches of colleagues across the country and overseas. The command post of local coverage is the city desk, from which news strategy is mapped and into which copy flows for appraisal and editing. The city editor has his men constantly deployed at key points where news originates and things happen. Reporters can't be everywhere, but they can be at nerve centers of the news. Such a nerve center is police headquarters, where seasoned reporters stand watch day and night to detect those fluctuations from the normal which mean trouble, which in turn mean news, police news. It could be a mystery that will rock the city, or it may be only a back page item, but the story has to be checked. The reporter's passport to the news is his press card, his credential as an emissary between the public and events the public needs to know. But today, the police beat provides only a fraction of the content of major newspapers. Today, the researches of science are more likely to produce page-one headlines, and modern reporters must be equipped to understand, clarify, and interpret. Nobody has ever defined exactly what news is, but food can certainly be news. The Times maintains a model test kitchen where recipes are prepared and sampled by experts before they are printed on the women's page and offered to the public. This, too, is a kind of newspaper reporting. And this also is modern journalism. Many a housewife turns to the fashion section of the paper before scanning the front page. The Times caters to the feminine reader not only with its own kitchen, but with its own fashion studios. Coverage of gracious living is an integral part of any paper that fully documents the American scene. Rounded, complete journalism requires not only gathering the news, but storing it up for future reference. What happened years ago may have a bearing on what happens tomorrow. Millions of clippings are preserved in the Times library, all indexed for instant use, a priceless archive of events and the men who make them. But the reporting of things happening, the converting of events into news stories to feed the insatiable presses, remains the principal function of the newspaper. And today, every major event has its repercussion in Washington, which has become the news capital of the world. Here, the New York Times maintains the largest bureau of any newspaper, staffed by crack correspondents whose dispatches are read throughout America and studied in embassies abroad. It is basic to the health of a democracy that no phase of government activity escape the scrutiny of the press. Here, reporters are assigned to stories fateful not only to our nation, but to all nations. And here, editors supervise coverage of news sources where overwhelming issues of war and peace, disaster and survival are in the making. Congressional Press Gallery, reporters sit as proxies of the people, free to observe, record, and criticize. Congress, says the First Amendment, shall pass no law abridging the freedom of the press, and the chief executive himself throws open the doors of the White House to journalists representing papers of all shades of political opinion. Nowhere else in the world does the head of a nation so freely submit himself to the probing of the press, which, acting for the public, demands that he give regular accounts of his stewardship. Once the news is obtained, it is transmitted to the public directly, with nothing to block its flow from the source to the people themselves. No censor's hand intervenes. When the reporting is done, the editing begins. Copy readers scrupulously check all stories, alert for possible error, skilled in gauging news values. The story receives its finishing touch with the writing of the headline. And now the story passes from editorial to mechanical hands. In the composing room, linotype machines transform copy into solid lead, which printers channel into the exact page chosen by the editors. Here, too, the advertising finds its proper spot, carefully chosen beforehand. From advertisements come most of the revenue, which keeps the press independent and self-sufficient, able to supply all the services which modern journalism requires. Reputable papers maintain an impassable barrier between advertising and news. The show window of the paper, page 1, hangs on the very edge of the deadline, held back for last-minute news, last-minute corrections. Under the supervision of the makeup editor, the final story is slipped into its waiting slot, and the compositor spaces it out to fit. Each completed page is a minor victory in speed and efficiency. Another routine of mechanical wizardry occurs in the stereotype department. Here, what was once a flat expanse of type emerges as a semi-cylindrical plate of lead, molded precisely and perfectly to fit the presses. Everything that has gone before, the news gathering, the editing, the typesetting, has been aimed at this moment when the presses begin to turn. Through these mechanical marvels, reporters and editors talk to the world. They are the functional symbols of man's unquenchable instinct to know and understand. This is the fruition. Untold effort, skill, and enterprise have been expended to produce it. Today's newspaper, a unique product, different from all its predecessors, different from all those that will follow it. The record of one day in the history of the world. But the most fascinating news ever printed is useless unless it quickly finds its way into the hands of readers. Now, another branch of the paper begins functioning, circulation. So swift and sweeping has distribution become that the Times is now read in 10,000 towns and cities from coast to coast, making it a truly national newspaper. Today's paper, rushed from New York, can be read today in Los Angeles and tomorrow in London and Paris. High-geared as news dissemination now is, tomorrow's amazing methods are already in the making. The Times has conducted experiments in facsimile broadcasting, by which news pages and, in time, perhaps whole newspapers can be sent over the ether. Your daily paper may one day arrive in your home much as your favorite program comes in today, through your radio set. But mere mechanics cannot make a great paper. Greatness stems from integrity, from a philosophy of journalism by which a paper lives. The Times lives by this credo. This was the creed of publisher Adolph S. Ox, who set the pattern and established the tradition being carried on today by Arthur Hayes Sulzberger, present publisher of the New York Times. The immense responsibility of giving the news impartially is discharged by printing all sides of all issues more fully and completely than any other newspaper. Great events are not only reported objectively, but interpreted by experts and given their place and meaning in the life of the reader. The most massive achievement in the field of journalism is the Sunday issue, which presents both the facts and background of every aspect of modern living. The whole enormous gamut of our society, culture, business, sport, foreign affairs, is covered with a thoroughness and scope unique in publishing. Thus, a leading journal of the free world meets the major problem of our time, the problem of understanding the world we live in. The value of a great newspaper does not evaporate with its date of issue. Nearly 100 years of the Times have been captured on microfilm, which makes the past forever available to the present, preserving headlines whose power to stir wonder and dismay live on long after the men who made them have passed away. Thus, through the years, a great newspaper compiles an enduring record of our country and our world, a living journal of the life and times of all of us. This is democracy's diary. Here, for our instruction, are triumphs and disasters, the pattern of life's changing fabric. Here is great journalism, a revelation of the past, a guide to the present, and a clue to the future. The scroll of tomorrow is still to be inscribed, and no man knows the shape and import of what will be written there. But when tomorrow's events unfold, a free and responsible press will print them for a free and enlightened public. Here, the press will say, here is what reporters have seen and heard and learned. These are the facts. You, the people, can base your judgment on them. And the climax to the story? Just this, nothing more. Only an American street in an American town where truth is tossed nonchalantly on the doorstep every morning. This is democracy's way. This is America.